This is how to solo flawless every dungeon in Destiny 2 in 20 minutes. Timestamps will be in the description. If Bungie's going to recycle content, then so will I. Shattered Throne, otherwise known as the mission you load into when you want to witness the complete and utter genocide of an entire race of Shadow Thrall, just so that you can get some bounties done. First encounter. If you don't know the mechanics, here's a map. Follow the symbols around as you take out the enemies. Got it? Cool. Use a bow, with a horde and guillotine to take out the Labyrinth Guardians. Careful of the hobgoblins. Now make your way down the elevator, breaking your ankles, then fall into the next area twice as far and break both your ankles again. I'll stick with more or less the same loadout through this section. In the long corridor here, throw on the eyeball shirt and just sneak past all the enemies with smoke bombs. Now you've got to deal with some ogres, which are mildly infuriating to say the least. An attribute they share with blue gear drops, Lorentz driver users in PvP and the Titan class as a whole. Alternatively, you can swap to jumpy boots and make your way along the side of the room. If you made it this far, congratulations, you can now commit as many war crimes as you wish on as many taken as you want. However, if you plan on doing industrial amounts of bounty grinding, I'd recommend continuing onwards to the second throwaway as it's a lot more consistent. Vorgeth is next, which happens to be the hardest encounter in the dungeon because the boss in the final encounter has about as much health as a dying woodlouse with 4 broken legs. Regardless, this boss is a major hurdle for most solo players that haven't watched this video though. Quick room analysis. Here's where the wizards spawn, rotate clockwise using the pillars and barriers to cover from the ogre. To take out the wizards, use invisibility to move between enemy locations, eliminate them with a fusion rifle, shotgun or with a horde, and pick up the buffs. On the final buff, invis before picking it up and deposit it to begin DPS. The easiest strategy for DPS is to use an advanced military tactic known as hiding. Tag the boss with a horde and then run to the nearest pillar to use it as a shield from the laser eye. Once you take care of Vorgeth, grab the chest and make your way through the next few areas with invis and you'll soon find yourself in the legendary second throwaway. I've been here for hours now. I'm having fun. Now continue on to the boss. You wouldn't want to miss out on that 58 stat roll at the end now, would you? Preferably don't get launched off the ball here and ascend to the boss encounter. Upon seeing the boss room, there are a few things you should be aware of. 2 pockets on the sides are where the ads spawn. The altar where you cleanse the buff. Here's where you'll find 3 knights that hit like actual Barrett M82 sniper rifles. The big arch at the back, that's where the boss hangs out. As mentioned before, if you so much as breathe on the boss once the DPS starts, it'll just keel over, so you want to base your loadout around taking out the knights. Now although it got nerfed, I still believe Anarchy is your best bet here. Start the encounter by putting an Anarchy shot onto 3 of the knights, and then 1 in the archways of the 2 sides to keep the ads under control. Mop up any you don't kill with an SMG or auto rifle. Soon after starting the encounter, the knights will disappear and reappear elsewhere in the arena. Keep applying Anarchy and shooting them occasionally with a slug shotgun. Kill all 3 of these at the same time, run to the back of the room, activate your tether, and yeah. So I want to preface this video by saying that unlike the other solo flawless guides I've done, I hadn't actually beat this one before planning to make this video. No need to worry though, I am quite the professional. That's not me. The opening to this dungeon, although pretty long, is trivially easy. You'd have to be pretty bad to mess up here. That's also not me. Use, surprise surprise, Arc Hunter with a 1-2 punch shotgun. I'll leave a link to the build showcase in the description if you're out of the loop. Swipe this gamer's sword and go to the 3 symbols shown at the top of the room. Before anyone argues with me, these are objectively the best callouts. Be especially careful with the wizard, he's the only dangerous one really. You could opt to use Xenophage here for taking out knights and ogres. Hope you had fun with that bit, because you'll have to do it every single reset. Go through some caves, drop down here and go through some more caves. Next half encounter, you've got to pick up and deposit 3 orbs while avoiding some ogres. These ogres are small, pretty passive and very easy to kill, I wouldn't worry about them. I'd switch on to Void here so you can use invis. However, when you get to the second actual encounter, you'll want to switch right back onto Arc because this room can get pretty chaotic. This encounter is appropriately named the Chamber of Suffering, because that's all you're going to do in this room if you don't know how it works. Here's a totem, you may recognise them from Kingsfall. Occasionally this will go angry and start a wipe mechanic, which can be prevented by standing on the plate. Problem, you can't always stand on the plate. You've got to kill knights that appear in each of the hallways and go pick up their orbs to deposit. Using Assassin's Cowl, it's pretty easy to grab the orbs and take them back to the plate without it blowing up. Just make sure you stay invisible so that these annoying knights at the top don't get any easy shots on you. Oh, did I mention the ogres from last encounter can come say hi? You'll be fine. Once you deposit the last orb, you'll pop this hive pimple and head down into the depths of the pit. Here's a map for this encounter, have fun and don't die. Now finally the boss, definitely the hardest part of the dungeon by far. The 3 Hive gamers from the first encounter are back, and much like that first encounter, the wizard is the only dangerous one provided you take care of the ads. When you've killed the mages, don't pick up the orbs, instead leave them where they are and deposit them all at once. This way you can take your time to clear the ads that spawn and make sure the boss can't hit you as you go to deposit. Upon depositing the final orb, use a linear fusion rifle with a horde and your arc super to deal damage, making sure to avoid the explodey thrall that could ruin your run in a second. When the boss starts the wipe mechanic, get off the plate. Don't get greedy. This should only take 3 phases maximum, a nice breath of fresh air from the horrors of Spire of the Watcher. Good luck. Prophecy, the easiest of the dungeons so far. From endless rolling dunes to wacky geometrical rooms to the brilliantly inconsistent lighting mechanics, this dungeon has it all. Seriously, dumping new light players into this dungeon right after finishing the tutorial and watching their minds just melt trying to figure out the most basic mechanic in the dungeon will never not be hilarious. I personally think Warlock is the easiest for this dungeon, with Hunter a close second. However, I'm picking Hunter because I'm a filthy invis crutch with a minor addiction to Assassin's Cowl. Load on into the mission and go through the first 2 rooms, because I'm definitely not teaching you how to do the skip on Hunter. Mechanics of the dungeon: light motes, dark motes, basically Gambit. Stand in the light, you kill a knight, you get light motes, stand in the dark, you get dark motes, except not always. Why? I don't know. Guess the 9 aren't a fan of stasis, they've evidently been playing too much PvP. That's a really outdated joke now, this is such an old script. Go through the first 2 rooms to reach the first encounter. Swap onto Arc with Assassin's Cowl and bring Tractor Cannon and a 1-2 punch shotgun. Move around the arena, taking out the Scions with your melee and using your shotgun to 1-2 punch the knights. If you're unaware of how Hunter Arc works, use the combination blow melee to refresh your dodge, then dodge near an enemy to refresh your melee. The invisibility that you get from Assassin's Cowl makes this fairly easy to pull off. When you have 5 motes, double dunk them and get the next 5. This works, this doesn't. Cool, let's continue. Once you've finally gotten yourself to DPS phase, clear out any remaining ads and then combo the boss like he's that one friend you could never beat in Smash Bros. Tractor Cannon, shotgun, 2 punches, repeat. When the goblins spawn, you can refresh your combination blow. This should be a 1 phase, but if it isn't, repeat the previous steps. The Dunes. Swap onto Xenophage and a sniper to clear all the hobgoblins before attempting to clear blights. Then you can push up and take out the other enemies. Fun fact, when you go to Toland after destroying the blights, he'll go in the direction of the next blights. Just a tip to keep you from wandering around aimlessly to eventually get smashed 10 feet into the ground by an angry invisible Minotaur. Now for the cube room. Throw on your arc loadout, hold on tight to your Xenophage, and get ready for the exciting mechanic known as hiding in a corner, and not coming out. Ever. Because hobgoblins are terrifying. Once you feel brave enough to venture back out into the room, focus on getting rid of the hobgoblins as quickly as possible. You may want a grenade launcher in case you run out of heavy ammo. I'd personally recommend Pardon Our Dust, but, you know, there's this little known grenade launcher in the game from a dark, uncivilized era that may or may not work to full effect inside this dungeon. That's never coming off now. Anyways, the cube room. Guess what's in this room? A cube. You want to light up all the sides, and while Toland does a fairly good job at guiding you through it, he has a nasty habit of hanging about on the ceiling. If this happens, look for a side of the cube that isn't lit up and dunk there. Also, these bosses are pitiful. Now for the hardest part of the dungeon, the Sparrow bit. Except not really, because we still have one more encounter. Using the arc build yet again, swap out your primary for Witherhoard and Xenophage for a good linear like Taipan or Cataclysmic. Make sure you have triple tap or 4 times the charm so that you can be ammo efficient. I use my arc super immediately after I get into the arena before throwing as much linear fusion rifle ammo into the boss's head as I can before he teleports away. It's at this point that I tag the boss with Witherhoard and focus my attention on the hobgoblins. When you've cleaned out the hobgoblins, turn back to the boss and deal as much damage as possible before their phase ends. This will be a round of 3 phase, but of course there's always the alternative. Wow, maybe this boss fight isn't difficult after all. Well, that's unfortunate. So you want to solo Flawless Grasp of Avarice. Well, you've come to the right place. Engrams, get familiar with them because they're the primary mechanic of every encounter in this dungeon. You pick up 10, you get free super. You pick up another 10, you get another free super. Abuse this as much as possible because it makes the dungeon an absolute walk in the park. Albeit a park with a concerning amount of spikes, pitfalls and spring traps, of which I have been to many. Pick up like 40 engrams or so and try not to die to bungee physics on the way down. Once in the Navigate the Facility encounter, make sure you know the route. If you don't, you might as well be playing Terraria from the amount of traps you'll be dying to. First encounter. Getting a quick look at the arena, we've got an ogre in the middle, he's not that important, with the 2 rooms at the side and the crystal at the bottom. The areas in red are where the ogre can typically hit you, so stay as much as you can in the green areas. Invis can be useful if you need to go into a red area for whatever reason. Upon starting, if there are still acolytes on the left side, take them out and remember to deposit the engrams, or you will die to the buff. Rotate anti-clockwise up to this ledge and take out the Scorch Cannon Vandal from behind this box. Go underneath the platform to pick up the cannon. These same steps can be taken every time you need a Scorch Cannon. Go into the rooms, pop a tether and use Null Composure to eliminate the enemies. Take the engrams to the crystal and repeat the same steps for the other side. In terms of damage, on Hunter you should be using everyone's favourite overpowered sword to deal about 1/3 of the boss's health in one phase. Make sure to use Lucent Blade and your tether to get maximum damage. You can also equip Passive Guard as that makes you far safer. Do it 3 times and you're done. Next up, the absolute nightmare of any solo Flawless run, the Sparrow section. Just as a precaution, take an Eager Edge sword and Sparrow with a shorter cooldown just in case it gets destroyed. Make sure you refresh your Sparrow at regular intervals to keep it topped up on health. I tend to do this to all the mines. If you're having trouble, there's always the Scourge Sparrow obtainable from the exotic kiosk for far too many spoils. Next encounter, large sphere, loads of platforms. The servitor that you launch at the shields can spawn on any platform other than the starting and ending ones. There aren't really any tips I can give for this one because it's relatively simple, so we'll move on to the boss. Meet Avarok the Covetous, his first mate, and Parrot. The first mate steals engrams from the floor, much like how real-life pirates work when plundering towns. The Parrot is logically the most dangerous, and can kill you in 2 hits, much like how real-life pirates work when plundering towns. If you didn't get the message, take out the Parrot right away by grabbing a Scorch Cannon and picking away at its health from afar using fully charged shots. You can then take your time shooting down the engrams, collecting as many as you can and depositing them into the crystal. For your information, the ads on the right spawn here, the ads in the middle spawn there somewhere, and the ads on the left spawn here, so feel free to spawn trap them with grenades. Once DPS starts, make sure you have charge with light for Lucent Blade, tether the boss and deal as much damage as you can. After DPS, the Parrot will spawn again, so make sure you take it out before getting any of the engrams again. In one phase you can hypothetically do 1/3 of the damage, but typically it'll be a 4 phase, meaning it can take upwards of 30 minutes for just this encounter alone. Good luck! Second only to Prophecy, this is probably one of the hardest dungeons in the game to beat solo. You start off with a nice long opening section where you can get familiar with all the dungeon's sparkling new mechanics, totally not copy pasted from that one section in the Corrupted Strike. These right here, as much as they look like high-tech Cabal heaters, are bells. Shoot them to go into the Nightmare Realm, which is basically just a less cool version of the Ascendant Plane where the Cabal change colours. If you want to leave this alternate reality, you've got to stand beside the bell as you shoot it to be transported back, else you'll die horribly and painfully. First encounter, Galran, except he's lost a bit of weight since last time. This encounter has you venturing into the Nightmare Realm to gather symbols to unlock doors, except each time you enter the realm there are these 2 gamers that pop out of nowhere to block you from getting out. They aren't that dangerous though, what are they gonna do? One hit me with an explosion and leave my remains scattered in the nearby surroundings? Thank you, Bungie. Once you have one symbol, kill the other scion but don't pick up the second symbol. You'll see why in a minute. Exit the Nightmare Realm and open the door with the first symbol. Shoot the bell and deal with the edgy Shadow Gorons in the next room. Now you can go pick up the second symbol, leaving the new scion alive. Kill the Bellkeepers and exit the Nightmare Realm. When you go back in to kill the second set of edgy Shadow Gorons, you can then kill the scion to get an extra 30 seconds of DPS. You're welcome. In terms of what to bring for DPS, go for a nice 1-2 punch tractor cannon combo. Save some ads so you can refresh your combination blow and keep up damage. In my experience, this has been around a 3 phase if you use super every round. Once you beat this encounter, go through some hallways, preferably don't get splattered all over the wall by the death slide, and make this jump here first try. A little while later and you're in the second encounter, appropriately named the Vault. Why does Destiny have an obsession with naming encounters the Vault? No idea, I'm just here to tell you how you can complete it. So the symbols are back, but this time you've got to be quick. Transition in and out of the Nightmare realm to collect the correct symbols and deposit them. Keep the exact same build as last encounter, using Assassin's Cowl to play at your own pace. Take out the Bellkeepers immediately after entering the Nightmare, and then go after the Standard Bearer, not the other way around. Please don't do it the other way around. Once the first mini-boss becomes damageable, use the same strat used on Golron to take them out. Repeat another 3 times, and you're done. Make your way through the next set of halls. This dungeon has a lot of halls it turns out, until you get to the boss encounter. The boss of this particular dungeon is the Nightmare of Keitel. Don't get too close unless you want to be slammed at Mach 4 into the side of the room. Again, crutch your Assassin's Cowl to take the fight at your own pace. No need to rush. Once you've grabbed and deposited 4 symbols, shoot one of these and you'll be transported into the DPS arena. Quickly figure out which direction Keitel is going and get over there fast. You don't want to end up with your DPS looking like this. I used Witherhoard, my shotgun and a linear fusion rifle for the majority of my DPS. There's plenty of ammo for the linear since we're using double special, so you can, and should, use a couple of shots to take out some of the snipers around the arena to stay safe. DPS isn't worth your life, as much as your Destiny friends will tell you otherwise. On a good day, this will only take 2 to 4 phases, thankfully. Good luck. Spire of the Watcher. Who's watching what? No idea. If you've ever wondered what being an electrician is like in the Destiny universe, then this is the dungeon for you. Mechanics. You kill these Minotaurs and step in the goop, which immediately turns you into a fully qualified arctrician who connects wires together by blasting them with military-grade weaponry. In the opening encounter, you do just that. Find the source of all the wires and shoot them in order to connect them back to the door. Pretty simple as long as you can crutch invisibility. The jumping puzzle. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea how to do this because I just skipped it with Eager Edge. The Ascent. I don't know if that's the official encounter name, but it's fairly descriptive. Much like the opening encounter, you've got Minotaurs and you've got wires to fix. It's hard to even call this bit an encounter, just don't jump off the edge and you'll be fine. Second encounter, not Consecrated Mind. I used Arcstrider Hunter here, but Thundercrash Titan works fine too. Bring Witherhoard, a good linear and a primary with a high-ish ammo count so you can pop all the eyes quickly when it comes to DPS. I'm getting ahead of myself though. In order to get to DPS in the first place, you yet again have to channel your inner electrician, pun not intended, and connect more wires. Once you've completed 3 of the 4 wire games, hold off on the last one for a bit so you can clear the harpies, which makes DPS a whole lot less stressful. When you're ready, activate the final electric node and wait for Not Consecrated Mind to come over. Shoot all the eyes as quickly as possible before throwing your super, tagging it with Witherhoard and pumping it with as much linear fusion rifle ammo as you can. If you don't move too far from the back of the platform, you won't be hit with the wipe mechanic. Now do it all again another 6 or 7 times because according to Bungie, more health equals more difficult. Now go all the way back down the spire until you get to this room here. Now you're going to have to listen to me very, very carefully here because the mechanical development in these last few encounters is very difficult to get your head around. The wires? They're red now. Also, you can hit these ones in any order as long as you do it quickly. If you can avoid the rotating blades of death between rooms, you'll make it to the final encounter alive. Guess what you're doing here? A complex series of intriguing, satisfying mechanics that reward you for excellent execution, followed by an exciting damage phase that truly tests your skills as a player. No, it's more wires. Upon starting the encounter by waking up the giant scary wyvern, you'll want to take out the 2 hydras on the sides from the cover of the reactor room. Arc Hunter really seems to be the best option here, not because I'm incredibly biased, but because you're going to get smashed into the ground by the giant scary wyvern if you don't. Just saying. Throughout the fight, you've also got to be very, very careful of supplicants. It's risky to refresh your combination blow on them, but sometimes you'll have to. Once the hydras are down, kill one of the minotaurs on the sides and connect the wires that open the door. You then have to complete 2 of the 4 possible wire paths that lead from the outside room into the reactor core. I would tell you to use Warmind cells, but they're pretty inconsistent, so I would just memorize the node locations instead. Make sure the boss is in the reactor room when you activate the final arc node, then make your way outside and shoot the middle nodes again to close the reactor door. When it it opens again, DPS will begin. Use your super, then use a rocket and Wither Horde for damage. I used Heathen's Vengeance, but really anything works. After 20 seconds or so, DPS will end and you can admire all your hard work. Have fun 20 phasing over the course of an hour, I'm out.